When I was a counselor at Kids Across America, I realized the need for education was so much bigger than the 8 days that I had my girls. I had a few ladies that had a real difficult time reading when we'd go through the Word, and we'd really just kind of start exploring what the Word was saying and reading through it during devotional times. In that time, they just couldn't read through Scripture, they couldn't read through the passages. And it was frustrating, I could tell, for them, because they so wanted to have that skill. And I realized at that time that pursuing justice and really getting to know younger students and getting to know them on a more intimate and relational level that could really impact their future had to be greater than just a 2-month period with them, to where I could really start to see them grow from year to year. And they needed a foundation in education, and they weren't getting it.
High school was terrible for me, and I don't want it to be like that for them. I don't want it to be like that for my own children, my own flesh and blood. So how can I say it's okay for it to be like that for someone else's children? So it's very important for me to be here, and hopefully if I do my job right, it won't continue to be like this. Hopefully 20, 30 years from now, me and the other people at MCR can look back and say, we are lucky to be able to send our children to Memphis City schools because it's the best school district in America. You know, this is the district where God resides, and great things are happening here. So that's why I'm here.
I grew up in a predominantly white elementary and middle school and neighborhood, and so most of my friends came from the suburbs, and so did my sisters. And so going through school, my sister and I had a much easier time than my brother did. Now, my brother's friends grew up in the inner city, and so he dressed differently, he spoke differently, and so he was treated differently. His skin was darker, and so at a young age, I grew to, my heart grew for those that were treated unfairly.
Now, I've thought about it. It's hard to explain because I don't get to see what I enjoy about this job today. A lot of the reason why I do this job and other people in MTR do this job with joy is because of what we hope to see in the future. The thought that maybe there will be solid families and children who grow up in loving homes because of me, because I had a chance to teach their parents and save their parents from a life of illiteracy or being trapped in a cycle of welfare. Knowing that maybe the crime rate will be lower because of me, that society will be different, and maybe people will know God because of me. That's the really enjoyable thing, but some of that stuff is hard to see today.
The MTR has set up a foundation to be able to have a gospel-centered response to education. It's about pursuing justice for these kids so they can have an equal opportunity for education just like anyone else. So camp is a great platform to start out with, to pursue something in the long run, to really look at what does a career look like to be able to influence the generation below me. What you're currently doing now is great, but how can you really influence them and continue to do it in a 5-year, in a 10-year, in a 20-year span? How does that look outside of just having them for 8 days at camp or for 2 weeks as a counselor?
I love my job. I love my kids. I love walking through life with them. I love the fact that as opposed to having a week with them, I get to spend the whole year with them. I get to know their families, their communities. I get to go into where they are, meet them where they're at, and bring them up. And I love to see the change that's happening in their lives. I love it.
He cares about everybody, even the fatherless and the widow and the poor and the people that we would say are insignificant. He cares very much about them. And he sees what's happening to them in America's public schools. And I know that breaks his heart. And so I know that one of the things that's on God's heart is that his people would come into these schools, and they would care about it, and they would do something about it. And he says, whatever you did for the least of these, you did it also for me. So I believe God's heart is here, and this is where I want to be.